Thank you all for coming. It was a little interesting trying to get in here. I'd been here before on, I think, that side of the building, and it was great. Yeah, and all I saw was fence and no place to park. But we're here, and I thank you all for coming. This really is about community and your community, something that we have an interest in because we're a local law firm, and it's about accountability to the people that are causing harm to your community. So we're here tonight to talk about PFAS contamination, specifically as it relates to Perdue. And it looks like, apparently not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And what we want to start with, I was never very good with the remotes. If it was a TV, no problem. But we're here to talk about the situation that really began back in September of 2023. In Maryland, we have the Maryland Department of the Environment. That's our state version of the EPA. And they confirmed that Perdue's wastewater and their groundwater was highly contaminated with a cancer-causing agent called PFAS. PFAS is what they call a forever chemical, and it causes a variety of diseases, and most importantly, cancer. Now, Perdue became aware of that because MDE told them in September of 2023, and for the past 2+ years, they really have failed to clean up this contamination and the contamination in your community that they have caused. They put out 500,000 gallons of wastewater a day with PFAS in it. It goes into the groundwater, and then it gets carried throughout the aquifer and your community. At the same time, they are currently expanding their agribusiness by 65%, putting profits ahead of environmental concerns. Now, we have been retained at this point by about 570 of you all in the community, and we believe that the class of people affected is multiples of that. As we test further and further away from the Perdue facility, we're still finding wells that test positive. There have been over 600 total wells tested by either Perdue, MDE, or our law firm. Of the wells that we have tested, many of them have contained very high concentrations of PFAS, some as many as 10 to 100 times what is normally permitted for safe drinking water. One of the things that is important to emphasize about this situation is that MDE, it's not responding. Okay. MDE wrote a letter to Perdue. They did an investigation for a year, and in September of 2024, a year after they discovered the problem, they wrote a letter to Perdue. And they said, well and surface water sampling data collected by MDE in areas west of the Perdue facility have identified contamination suggestive of a regional PFAS contamination plume traceable to the Perdue facility. Regional is important. The reason they used the word regional was that they meant it was a large area of contamination. It was not an area of contamination that was simply isolated to the Perdue facility itself, or the immediate area around that facility. MDE did something in this letter they rarely do. They publicly said that based on the evidence, MDE is designating Perdue as a responsible person liable for this contamination. Okay. Now, I want to talk with you a little bit about our legal team. And it looks like I can't get this to move. There we go. All right, talk with you a little bit about our legal team. At Brockstead, Mandelis, and Federico, we do environmental law and environmental litigation, and we have a team, and you'll see them here, of 8 lawyers working on this case with really, if you add it all up, well over 100 years of experience. That could be responsible for the majority of that. We also have 7 paralegals working on this case. And one of the reasons I point that out, one of the reasons it's so important is because we're going up against a corporation. You know, when you bring an individual case and you try to go up against a corporation, it's very difficult, it's very expensive. When a community like your community gets together and hires a law firm that can afford to spend millions of dollars on your behalf and knows how to litigate cases like this, you can defeat a corporation that's doing something that's not appropriate. In terms of our experience, many of you probably are familiar with Mount Air Chicken. Mount Air Chicken for years put nitrates in the water in the Millsboro community. We got involved in that case. We got that community $205 million. $140 million went to fixing the problem, which is called remediation, and restoring their water so it was safe to drink. That case is about 2 or 3 years old. A case we resolved last year in South Carolina involved New Indy, a paper mill that was owned by, or is owned by Robert Kraft, who owns the New England Patriots. And again, a big corporation, they have really deep pockets, but we were able to pool our resources together and pool our team together and get that case resolved for $103 million. Again, $85 million went to fixing the problem, restoring the water. Because for us, it's about solving the problem, not about making people rich. We want to restore the waters, fix the problem first, and then get people compensated. Now, currently, a very large case that we're handling involves the W.L. Gore Company. Many of you have probably heard of Gore-Tex. They use PFAS historically to manufacture Gore-Tex. So while it's really good at repelling water and clothes, they're putting it into the groundwater they have historically, and it's killing people. We have a case pending in Cecil County, Maryland. It's a PFAS case, and we represent a class there that's estimated to be about 5,000 people. We're also involved in a large nationwide case in Charleston, South Carolina, that's PFAS oriented as well as firefighter foam oriented, where we represent water providers and a variety of public entities. So that's really the introduction for purposes of tonight. I'd like to introduce Deborah Jennings, who's going to talk with you a little bit about PFAS in more detail and explain the regulations associated with PFAS.
Yeah. This makes it move.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. PFAS are lab-made chemicals that are used in industry. You may wonder what it stands for. I think I can say this right. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. It's actually an entire family of substances, a real alphabet soup of substances that I won't go into, but PFAS is the broad term. So you're always going to be correct if you call it PFAS. These are known as forever chemicals. Why is that? Because they persist in the environment and they persist in our bodies. They're not very biodegradable, and that makes them especially dangerous. The chemicals that we're concerned about in this case are PFOS, PFOA, and PFHXS, all of which can be called PFAS. Now, the International Agency for Research on Cancer has determined that some of these are carcinogenic or potentially carcinogenic. Oh, thank you, thank you. I should have changed it. Keep going. Next. Thank you. Among the cancers that they have been demonstrated to cause, I should say that the agencies are reluctant to call things carcinogenic. They actually have to have pretty solid evidence before they say that, and they have said that as to certain of these substances. And their determinations are based on peer-reviewed scientific data that has been gathered. But it includes increased risks of cancers like kidney and testicular cancer, increased risk of ulcerative colitis, decreased fertility or increased blood pressure, particularly during pregnancy, developmental delays in children, reduced immune response, interference with hormones, increased cholesterol, or obesity. And I might add that these dangers, while it's dangerous to all of us, they're particularly dangerous to children because children have small bodies and are much more subject to contamination and the problems it can cause. So EPA, of course, is the federal agency that is tasked with protecting the environment. And they were a little late to come to the party for PFAS because the dangers were pretty well established as early as 1994 by other agencies. But in 2021, EPA gave a lot of priority to coming up with a menu of regulations that would pertain to PFAS. First of all, while they were establishing a drinking water regulation, they developed a health advisory for PFOA and PFOS. And they were very, very low concentrations, 0.004 parts per trillion for PFOA and 0.02 parts per trillion for PFOS. This is really approaching zero, but that's the threshold at which EPA determined that there was a potential for health risk. When they ultimately developed a drinking water standard, it was a little bit higher at 4 parts per trillion. But the reason for that was that the statute requires you to take into consideration practical things like how well the technology is capable of controlling and removing PFAS. And once you took those practical concerns into consideration, the number became 4 parts per trillion, still a very low number, but not as low as the level at which health concerns come into play, which was substantially lower. In addition to that, they designated PFAS as a hazardous constituent under the hazardous waste control laws and as a hazardous substance under the Superfund statute, the cleanup laws. And as I mentioned, they set the drinking water standard at 4. And many of the test results in this case are 10 to 100 times the level that's been set as the regulatory standard for drinking water. So your groundwater is very elevated for PFAS in many cases. And EPA also proposed concentrations that would apply to the receiving water, for example, Peggy Branch. And these are based on concerns about children particularly playing around the water, eating fish, ingesting the water, and so on. And those numbers are extremely low again. It's 0.0009 parts per trillion, extremely low numbers. And even though Perdue has recently installed some treatment technology for its discharge to the receiving water, what it's now calling trace amounts of PFAS in that discharge water is still substantially higher than the number that EPA has set in these draft health-based, human health-based concentrations. Are you aimed properly? Okay, there you go. Okay. So, who is MDE and what is their role? MDE, of course, as Phil pointed out, is the Maryland version of EPA. And they actually have been looking at PFAS statewide because there are issues in public health supplies and so on, and therefore required Perdue to do some testing, and you know, incredibly, they came up with some very high numbers, and this investigation was required and begun. And as mentioned, Roger's going to go in much more detail about the wastewater and groundwater concentrations that have been found to exist. Okay, next. Recently, Perdue, within the last year or so, Perdue has applied to expand this plant. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they're proposing to expand production by approximately 65%. And that requires the filing of an application to increase air pollutant emissions and the filing of an application related to their wastewater discharge. So we have entered those proceedings and we're monitoring them and filing comments to protect your position, to protect the environment, and hopefully encourage and maybe hopefully persuade MDE to impose the kind of requirements that we think are necessary going forward to protect both the air and the water. But the application would increase the emissions of toxic air pollutants by 120 tons per year. So it's very substantial and definitely something to be watched. So I'd now like to turn it over to my colleague, Roger Truitt. Roger was my partner in a law firm for many years, as we're both environmental lawyers. He's also an engineer, and he serves as a technical consultant on this case. So, Roger?
Can I let you go forward? Good evening. Thank you for coming out. And just to supplement what Deborah mentioned, when we worked together for a large law firm in Baltimore, we were typically on the side of the large corporations. And so it's refreshing to now be on the side of the people and to try to solve these problems. And what we used to do was try to keep companies in compliance and to do the right thing. So we're still doing it, just from the other side now. So if we could go to the next slide, Phil, thank you. So a little bit of geography here that'll help everybody understand if you're not familiar with where the Perdue Agribusiness Facility is. It's shown on this slide in the big red circle. The yellow road there is the Route 50 bypass of Salisbury that takes people out to Ocean City. There's also down in the lower part of the figure, Old Ocean City Road, which is just south of the facility, and actually Perdue International Headquarters is right here, almost adjacent. The site itself is on a road called Zion Church Road, which runs parallel and east of Route 50 bypass. The property that Perdue owns and operates there is quite large. It's a large industrial complex. It consists of almost 300 acres. And then one of the communities that's most affected by this PFAS contamination is just to the west, right in here. That's called Heather Glen. Perhaps some of you here tonight live there. But that's not the only area that we are finding is impacted. If we could go to the next one. So what do they do at this facility? This is not a Perdue chicken plant, okay? This is a plant where they are processing soybeans primarily, and they extract the oil from the soybeans using a very strong toxic solvent called hexane. And then once they have extracted that oil, probably 10% of a soybean weight is the oil that's contained therein. Then they send it to a refinery that's also on the site. And they actually refine this, what's called crude soybean oil, into an edible oil that ends up being shipped off site and used in many products that you probably have in your home. Salad dressings, perhaps soy sauce. It's also used in the manufacturing of potato chips and things like that. They also have a feed mill on the property, because not all of the production relates to this oil. They also generate feed for chickens and other animals. There's a lot of grain storage because, as you probably know, soybeans, they have seasons, and so they have to bring them in and store them when they're being harvested. They also bring in soybeans from many other places, as far away as Argentina, Brazil, Ukraine, Africa. And one of our concerns is the regulations in those countries may not be as stringent as we have here. So we're not sure what else is coming in with the soybeans. They also have a couple of hatcheries on the site as well. Can we go to the next one? So this is a close-up more, okay, we'll go here. So we talk about wastewater, which is a big issue here because the wastewater was found to be heavily contaminated with the PFAS. And they have been generating about 180,000 gallons of wastewater that's been discharged every day to Peggy Branch. But for many years, probably 25 years, a portion of this, or roughly 20%, has been spray irrigated to the site. We'll look at that in a little more detail in a minute. Until very recently, July of this year, Perdue's outdated wastewater treatment plant did not reduce PFAS at all. And it consists of a number of lagoons that you see here in the photograph. There's 4 different lagoons that constitute their wastewater treatment plant. Those are very old lagoons, and our experts believe they are leaking, as does MDE, based on some documentation we have seen. Can we go to the next one? So this is a blow-up of the entire site. First of all, the storage of the soybeans coming in are in these cylindrical tanks here. This industrial area over here, closest to Route 50, is the refinery that I spoke of. The extraction plant is kind of right in this area. Here's that wastewater treatment plant I was just looking at with the lagoons. And so what Perdue has been doing for several decades is taking a portion of the wastewater that they generate and spraying it in 2 places. One, this large crop field here, in which they could grow corn or soybeans. They were permitted to do that because MDE was not requiring them to test for PFAS years ago. They also were spray irrigating it on a forested area out here. And why this is significant is these 2 areas are very close to, here's Heather Glen and the wells that are contaminated. And you'll see in a minute that the groundwater is moving from east to west. So for many years, we believe Perdue has been putting the PFAS out into the groundwater in these areas. Let's see if there's anything else I want to mention here. I do want to mention their wastewater treatment plant, interestingly enough, discharges into Peggy Branch, which is here at the blue line. And actually the headwaters, the very beginning of Peggy Branch, is their wastewater discharge. So but for their wastewater discharge, there would be no Peggy Branch in this area, unless maybe it rained or something. And of course, that stream, as well as another one to the north, Middle Neck Branch, course through the Heather Glen community on both the north and south sides of that. Okay, if we could go to the next one. So I talked about the direction of groundwater, and we have groundwater experts working with us, PhDs who've been working in PFAS contamination for a number of years. So here in the yellow, you see this is the Perdue facility that we've been focused on. And the blue arrows show the direction of groundwater. And this is known, it's been known by Perdue, and it's well known by the Maryland Geologic Survey, who looks at these kinds of things. And of course, all that groundwater is working its way toward the north branch of the Wicomico River. And it's moving at about 400 to 600 feet per year, which for groundwater is a pretty swift movement. So if you think about it, it's moving about between 1 and 2 feet per day. And that's a whole wall of contaminated groundwater, PFAS contaminated groundwater, moving from the Perdue facility right here over into these residential areas that are on private wells. We could go to the next one. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll use this one as we go forward if we need to. Thank you. And by the way, the amount of groundwater in this foot or two every day that's moving is about 500,000 gallons of groundwater. So every day, that amount of groundwater, contaminated groundwater, is moving to the west into these communities on private wells. To get an idea of how much is 500,000 gallons a day or 500,000, if you took your typical swimming pool that might be in a residential backyard that's 16 feet by 32 feet in dimensions, that's about 25 of those pools full of water that's being released every day from the Perdue property heading to the west and these communities. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this figure, and Brent, you'll help me out with the pointer maybe. This shows in the red blocks all of the contaminated wells that are exceeding EPA standards for drinking water for one or more PFAS compounds. And you'll see the outline in the red is the Perdue facility. And you see that all over their site there are red boxes. So there's a lot of contamination on their site. And then to the west, in the Heather Glen community and even further west, you see a huge number of contaminated wells. You also see them to the south of Peggy Branch. Peggy Branch is the lower blue line there, running to the south of the plant and then west. Middle Neck Branch is the upper blue line. But you see we have contamination south of Peggy Branch. We have it pretty far west, and we also have it south and east of the Perdue facility. Okay, if we could go to the next one. So this is another figure showing the contamination that's been found beyond the area where Perdue has been testing and putting in temporary treatment systems for homeowners. And let me get you some numbers just to give you a sense. So in the area to the west of the yellow area is the area that Perdue has been testing wells. But to the west of that, we have conducted our own test. I say we, it's our consulting firm that's an expert in these areas. They've been doing groundwater testing for 40 or more years. They have 10 PhDs on their staff, 40 or 50 employees, and we have retained them to go out and conduct testing on wells that are beyond the area where Perdue has been testing. And in that area to the west, out of 14 wells that we have tested, 9 exceed the PFAS drinking water standard for one or more of the PFAS compounds. To the south of the yellow area there, south of Peggy's Branch, we've tested 5, and 2 of the 5 exceed. And then to the southeast area, out of 10 that have tested, 7 come back high. So it's not just the area that Perdue has focused on. This plume, this regional plume that Phil mentioned before, is beyond the area that they are currently testing and putting in treatment systems. Go to the next one. So I mentioned the surface water. We have 2 streams, Middle Neck Branch on the north and Peggy Branch to the south. And we've actually gone out and tested these streams as well. MDE did an early test, but we've been out 2 times. And what we have found is those streams are exceeding EPA's water quality criteria by anywhere from 140 to 10,000 times. And that's multiple samples. Wherever you see a blue cross there, that's where we have conducted sampling. We've conducted it all the way down to almost Johnson Pond, where Peggy Branch empties into the north branch of the Wicomico River, and we're getting these high numbers all the way. And you might say, well, how is that happening? Well, we're still looking at that. We're still investigating, but in addition to the discharge from the Perdue plant, they also have surface water runoff from the plant that goes into these 2 waterways. They also, the groundwater that's contaminated, at least during certain times of the year, surfaces out into these little creeks. And so that contaminated groundwater that I mentioned, 500,000 gallons a day, that's leaving their property at these very high levels, 1,000 or more parts per trillion, is some of that's winding up in these two streams. And currently, nothing's being done about that. Can we go to the next one? So I mentioned that we have a lot of experts working for us. We have more than 10 experts that have been retained. Part of my job, as having a technical background, is to find these experts and bring them all together and try to manage the work that they're doing. And they've been doing a lot of work since this lawsuit was filed a year ago. In fact, they generated a 65-page report, which is called an Interim Remedial Measures Report for the Perdue facility, basically looking at all the data that they could get their hands on, assessing that, and then making recommendations about what Perdue should be doing and what they should be doing on an interim or immediate basis. They didn't, I mean, there are more things down the road that probably need to be done, but what they could be doing immediately. And here's a list of some of the things that they came up with. Testing residential drinking water in areas outside of Perdue's current well test area, hearkening back to the figure I just showed you. Nobody's out there testing that right now but us. Providing bottled water and installing temporary point of entry treatment systems for all the homes that exceed the PFAS drinking water standard, both within the area they're testing, because there's still, not everyone there has agreed with Perdue to provide a treatment system because they only want to do it on an interim basis. Third is to upgrade the wastewater treatment plant to remove the maximum amount of PFAS from wastewater being discharged at Peggy Branch. You might have heard in some of the news and some of the things that Perdue has come out with that they have just recently installed some PFAS treatment, finally, 2.5 years after they found it on their site. But that doesn't still get you down to the levels that Deborah was talking about that are considered safe for the surface water in Peggy Branch that EPA has come up with to protect human health. And then there are a number of soil hotspots. Perdue likes to talk about the fact that this is all because of something called firefighting foam that they no longer use with PFAS that had a discharge back in 2019. And that was the only issue, and they've addressed it by going away from PFAS-containing what's called AFFF, firefighting foam. And they just did that just within the last couple of months from what we understand. Well, it turns out that when you look at the reports that their own consultants have done, the PFAS, and you saw by the red squares, is all over their site. It's not just in the one area where the firefighting foam was, they say, leaked out. So there are a number of hot spots that exist, and a lot of them to the west of the site that are closest to Heather Glen, that need to be addressed immediately. They need to be tested and excavated and taken to a safe place. Can we go to the next one? Because they continue to release PFAS to the groundwater and the surface water. Our consultants, experts say that there should be a pump and treat system on the groundwater. This 500,000 gallons a day that's leaving the property should not be leaving the property. They should be capturing it, treating it, and then maybe releasing it at an appropriate level to the surface water. But they're not addressing that at all. Also, these lagoons, these treatment lagoons that I showed you in the photograph that even MDE thinks are leaking, they're not doing anything right now about that. They're not remediating them. They have sludge in them that has been tested and found to have high levels of PFAS. They're just letting it stay there and continue to leak into the groundwater. There's a possibility that their wastewater lines, because that convey this wastewater that has high PFAS in it, could be leaking. Sewer lines leak all the time, especially if they're older. It's not unusual for them to leak. If it leaks, it goes down to the groundwater. And then they should also be thoroughly investigating all sources of PFAS, not just assuming it's only in the AFFF fire suppression. There are studies out there at various universities that have found PFAS in soybeans themselves. because of the pesticides that might be used, because biosolids are put on fields where soybeans are grown, and it's known that pesticides and biosolids contain PFAS, and it's known that soybeans can take up that PFAS into the bean itself. But we've seen nothing to indicate that Perdue wants to test the beans. And as I say, these beans are coming in from all over the world, and we don't know what they contain. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now to Chase, who's going to take you through the timeline.
Thank you, Roger. My name is Chase Brockstead. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. You know, we just heard from Roger a pretty compelling argument about what Perdue should be doing, needs to be doing, and is not doing. And what I want to sort of remind everybody, and some of you that came here, you know, more than a year ago to hear us talk about this case has heard some of this. And this is sort of our timeline about, you know, who knew what when and what has been done about it, and frankly, what has not been done about it. So in February of this coming February, it will be 3 years since Perdue found out that it had PFAS in its water supplies exceeding the EPA's health advisory levels by 1,000 times. This past August was the 2-year anniversary where they found high levels of PFAS in their wastewater spray irrigation and the water that was being discharged into Peggy's Branch. In December of 2023, again, almost 2 years ago at this point, Perdue and MDE found extremely high levels of PFAS wastewater generated from their soybean crush plant and sludge in their wastewater treatment plant lagoons, the lagoons that we believe are leaking PFAS-laden wastewater. In December 23, Perdue posted notices throughout its facility warning employees not to drink the fountains, water from the fountains. Notably, there was no notice to the public at that time, but they were making sure that their employees knew not to drink their water. Brandon, if you can go to the next slide. Oh, this is it, okay. At that time, Perdue found extremely high levels of PFAS in the groundwater where it had been spray irrigating crops and trees. And then about 7 months later, Perdue found high levels of PFAS in the groundwater wells located within 500 to 1,000 feet from residential wells in the Heather Glen community. And it's a little bit after that time that our firm learned of what was happening in this case. In September of 2024, a very significant finding happened. MDE designated Perdue as the responsible person liable under state law for the groundwater and surface water contamination and ordered Perdue to investigate the wells serving the surrounding areas. And that was sort of a landmark decision for MDE at that case, pointing the finger directly at Perdue and not some other source from around the area. There we go. In October 2024, that is the first time that Perdue, which is some 20 months after they learned that Perdue warned anyone in the community about the PFAS contamination. That same month, we filed a lawsuit against Perdue, and we were here shortly after that lawsuit was filed last year. Shortly thereafter, Perdue found unsafe levels of PFAS in many residential wells, and they started offering bottled water and treatment systems, expanding the testing area from what they initially thought was 600 homes to more than 900 homes. In January 2025, Perdue's environmental consultant had issued a report identifying those 9 areas around the facility where PFAS contamination had been, or PFAS had been disposed, and there was likely contamination. Those are the same areas that Roger just talked to you, all different areas around the site, even though what Perdue is saying, it just came from this one location with AFFF. We now know it's sort of everywhere. And this was 23 months after they learned of the contamination. Thanks, Brent. This past summer, our team met with the Maryland Department of the Environment officials to review the work performed by our experts and our remediation specialists. We submitted what is called an interim remediation report that was prepared by our experts, and we submitted that to MDE, recommending that they require and enforce an order against Perdue, forcing them into complying with our interim report. That same month, Perdue reported that it had finally installed PFAS treatment on its wastewater treatment plant, discharged to Peggy Creek. Again, this is some 23 months after it learned of high levels in that discharge. And then in November, where we are right now, we still have no evidence that Perdue is taking any action at all to basically contain what is happening on their site. We know from what Roger just talked about that we've got lagoons that are leaking, we've got discharge into Peggy's branch, into Middle Neck branch, we've got excavated soil with PFAS-laden soil in it that is leached into the groundwater that is damaging the communities. And all of this, by the way, is going on while Perdue seeks to expand its plant by some 65%, expand its business, obviously generate more revenue and more profit, without doing what we think is necessary, what our experts think is necessary, leading experts and consultants in the industry think is necessary to immediately stop what is happening. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and partner, Brent Series, and he's going to talk about the lawsuits and where we are procedurally with the litigation.
Good evening. As Chase mentioned, my name is Brent Series, one of the lawyers in the litigation team. And I'm here to speak with you this evening about the status of our two pending lawsuits against Perdue and the related entities of Perdue. The first, as Chase mentioned, was filed in October of last year. That is our class action lawsuit. As many of you know, a class action is one lawsuit filed on behalf of many people who have been similarly affected by the conduct of a defendant. So we filed that lawsuit, as I mentioned, back in October. The purpose of that lawsuit is both to hold Perdue accountable for the compensatory damages, that's the money damages that members of the community have experienced as a result of the diminution in the value of the property, the loss of value of property, as well as potential need for medical monitoring and for any health impacts. Shortly after the filing of our complaint, Perdue filed what's called a motion to dismiss our complaint. The court considered that for a number of months, and in August of 2025, the court denied that motion, allowing us to proceed to the next phase of the litigation called discovery. And discovery is our opportunity to receive documents, to take depositions, and help build our case that will ultimately be presented at trial. While that is occurring, we filed a second lawsuit, referred here as the RCRA lawsuit, RCRA, which stands for the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. That's a federal law that allows for citizens to bring lawsuits under this federal law where the state has not done so. And so we filed our lawsuit under RCRA, and the purpose of that lawsuit, related purpose, is to hold Perdue accountable for violating the federal environmental laws that prohibit unlawful dumping of PFAS contaminated waste and also causing potential harm to human health and the environment, substantial endangerment. As with the class action lawsuit, Perdue has filed a motion to dismiss that complaint, and that's currently under consideration by the court. Our next steps, while we are in the course of litigating those two cases, going through the discovery process that I mentioned, we're also continuing our investigation. We are conducting additional testing, much of which you've heard about today, and expanding or refining the area of concern as appropriate. And we are continuing to pursue through Private Information Act requests, information that the state already has about this incident. We are going through the process of retaining additional experts to assist us in the course of this litigation and assessing the size and scope of the impact here. All the while, we are evaluating the options for resolution with Perdue, and that includes looking at the best way to remediate or fix this problem, also determining the nature and extent of the damages, the compensatory damages in this case, and engaging with Perdue and the Maryland Department of the Environment to find a way to solve this problem for the community. I think I'll turn it back over to Phil, I believe, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I say this in every environmental case. We're not here to put Perdue out of business. They employ a lot of people, they do a lot of good things. But when it comes to putting PFAS in your drinking water, they do need to be held accountable. They need to fix the problem, and they need to compensate people in the community who have been affected. So that's what we're looking to do. We want to work closely with Perdue to try and resolve this matter. Sometimes, you know, it's the carrot or the stick, right? Sometimes they come along easily, and they do work with you. Other times, not so much. So right now, we're in litigation. We're prepared to litigate this case as long as we have to win it. We have the resources financially. We have the expertise to do it. We have the consultants and the experts, some of the best experts in the country. So if it takes a long time, we're going to be here. If we can get it done more quickly, we'd love to do that. It's really up to Perdue. And if they're really going to be a good corporate citizen, they'd come to the table sooner as opposed to later and solve this problem and do it the right way. So at this point, you know, if anybody would like to ask questions, we have a microphone here. You all can form a line, is what we do traditionally. And we're happy to answer any and all questions you may have. Anybody?
I just wanted to know, because I don't know anything about all this contamination too much, but does it affect the soil? Our soil on our, you know, our
Oh, yeah.
lawn?
Oh, yeah. The way it works is the PFAS is in the soil, and it leaches through the soil, gets into the aquifer, and gets into the groundwater. But the soil is contaminated as well as the water. Now, you have to test the soil to be sure that specific areas are contaminated. But yes, both can be contaminated.
Has your law firm done soil testing?
We've started with the groundwater.
Okay.
We will be doing some soil sampling, but we haven't done any significant soil sampling yet.
So I have apple trees, so that means that, because I planted them because my dogs love apples, so I shouldn't be feeding them those apples, correct?
Have you had your well tested? Have you had your water?
Yes.
Was your
You
water?
guys tested it,
Okay, did it test positive?
big time.
Yeah. I would be very careful about eating those apples,
Okay,
okay?
all right. Thank you.
Yes, please. You can just come up and,
Yeah, I just live less than a mile east of the Perdue plant.
okay.
So our well has never been tested. So in our community, only maybe 50 houses, and there are lots of neurological diseases coming up. You know, my husband has ALS. There is another ALS patient in our area. Both of them, we are living in that area such a long time. It's our 38th year right now. So it is not only causing cancer, but because
causing other diseases.
Yeah, because it changed the nature of DNA, and it is a epigenetic factors coming involved, and it causes any kind of disease. But it is not a coincidence seeing all of those neurological diseases. I know 5 people in our small community. 2 of them has ALS, the other one has Parkinson's disease, and other neurological diseases as well.
Well, I would encourage anybody who has any diseases that they think are related to have their well tested.
And my, my husband is a very, very, very healthy person, and all of a sudden he got that disease.
Have you had your well tested?
Not for the PFAS.
Okay, you should have your well tested. There's a test called Cyclopure, which is very affordable, and if you call our office, reach out to our office, we can help you with getting your well tested.
So but I expect the Perdue do that tests, all of those areas, because we are very close to the plant.
I don't know if you're close enough to the plant that they'll agree to test. You can always call them and ask them. But if they won't test, you can call us. We can explain to you how to get the Cyclopure test, which is very affordable.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there is a map back there that you can look at. And if you're inside the red area on the map,
Yeah.
Perdue?
Okay.
It's red, isn't it? If you're inside the red area, Perdue should test. If you're inside the yellow area, it is probable that your well will test positive. But again, we can help you with testing,
Okay.
okay? Thank
So,
you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
We lived on Havasu Drive, it's just east of your line for 19 years.
Okay.
And I had her water, we've since sold, I had her water tested. And it tested for, this was from the cyclopure, the PFOA's 8.3, PFOS's 12.5, and then 100 other things they tested. Now, I live east of Walston Switch Road now.
Okay.
It tested for the PFOA's 6.5 and the PFOS's, I left my glasses on, 6.3. It's either 6 or an 8, I'm not sure. Surely it does not go that far, so how do you account for those numbers in Parsonsburg, east of Walston Switch Road?
Well, I don't know geographically how much difference there is between
It's
the
good
two.
ways. It's
But
good.
we would have to look, PFAS has a DNA component to it, and we
So
would have.
can other means
There are other,
get it in your well water?
there are other sources of PFAS all over the country. I was talking about the case that we were doing in Cecil County.
Yeah.
So if you're not geographically within a reasonable area, based on the testing that we're doing, then there must be some other source.
Right.
But
I
I'd
feel
need
like
a lot more
I feel
data.
like the Havasu Drive address, you strategically took 2 streets. It's like it came past the storage unit, went straight back. If you'd have gone 2 roads down, that's Havasu Drive. They
Well,
were just taken right out of it. It looked like some of the wells tested positive on that street.
Yeah.
And then it goes, the line went where that neighborhood is, way back past where Peggy Drive and Havasu Drive.
So I
Or-
say this frequently in our groundwater cases.
Mm-hmm.
We start out with a source of contamination. We draw a circle. That's not what it's going to look like when the testing is over.
Right.
That circle is going to become irregularly shaped based on the way the water flows, which is unique to the type of soil and a number of hydrogeological factors that go into how groundwater flows. So it's hard to talk in generalities. But again, I think that the first one you mentioned could be very well related to Perdue. The second one,
Havasu Drive.
yeah. the
We
second
lived there
one-
for 9 years. My husband passed away he had ALS and cancer.
Okay. Well, you certainly should call us and we should look at it for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello.
Good evening, hello. The fingers of this nonsense that this PFAS is doing, the water that you can't drink, bathe in, cook with, things you can't do with the children. But it's gone deeper because we just had a new well put on. Now, PFAS did not break our well. What broke us was the new casing that is required to put on the post that goes down because of PFAS. That's $11,000 above and beyond what we had to pay for our new well. So it's cost us that kind of money, not the water, because we've tested negative, but we still had to put the casing on. So we're good to go until we had to put that casing on.
Did you test negative before you drew?
Yes.
In the old well tested?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now we've had this new well tested, have not received anything back from it yet. The point is, this has gone deeper than we could have ever anticipated. I didn't ever guess to pay $11,000 extra to get a new well. So I'm mad. I'm just
I
mad.
don't blame you.
And the health department is one that requires it. They're the ones that have stepped in. So there I am. My neighbors way on the other side of town, they got a nice little well put in for a lot cheaper than I just had put in.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So, and again, this falls on Perdue.
Yes.
Because they have contaminated the superficial aquifer, which is called the Columbia. The deeper aquifer is called the Minokan. And there's a separation between the two of clay and things that don't allow the water to commingle.
Right. That's what was told us, yeah.
The concern of the health department, and I guess to some extent MDE, is that when new wells are put in, you're creating a conduit down to
Yes.
the deeper aquifer. And that's why these now casings are being required. And again, but for the contamination at the Perdue facility, that would have never happened.
Exactly. But I just wanted to, especially this gentleman, because you were talking about the lawsuit, and you were saying we need to correct, because people aren't going to be able to sell their houses if you're testing positive PFAS, or even rent a house if you think about it, or many of other things. But now, if anybody here has to put a new well in, good luck. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Hello.
Hello.
My phone, I've lost my notes now. Okay. A question about them expanding.
Yes.
Well, I live across the street from Perdue. We have a farm there. Havasu, the lady that lives on Havasu, her street ends, and my farm is like to the back of that. We had our water tested. We live at the back of the farm, which is like 1,200 feet from Zion Church Road, east of Zion Church Road. And our PFAS were like 18 to 19, really high. I have a rental property at the front of my property, and it was in limits. It was lower than back at my farm. I don't understand that. And then my neighbor who lives east of me, they just got their results back, and they have high PFAS. That I wanted you to be aware that east, and the other lady at Walston, that is even more east of us.
Right.
So that was one of my things that I wanted to tell you, but I wanted to know, with them expanding, is there any way to stop them from expanding? And if there is not, can it be held off until they fix this water?
We'd like to see that happen. Deborah, is that something you can address, whether or not we can?
I think the short answer, oops, is that on?
It is.
Okay. The short answer is probably not. On the water side, for the water discharge, all they have required so far, MDE has required, is that Perdue install some new equipment, which they've done, and that they test and give the results to MDE. Now, this pertains only to their discharge to Peggy Branch. It does not pertain to the groundwater. That's a different issue. So at the moment, they don't even have a limit that applies to that discharge. And that's been true for the last year or two as they've been doing this investigation. So,
And they can't just shut them down.
no, but they can impose a limit that will be helpful in the future. It doesn't really address the existing problems, but we're certainly going to be lobbying for an appropriate limit on that discharge so that they're not exacerbating the problem by having a much larger quantity of water to discharge.
Okay.
On the air side, there's a very significant increase in their emissions that they're applying for.
Oh, I know.
120 tons. I mean,
Well,
that's...
it's bad now. The dust that comes from there
Yes.
is really, I mean, it's bad
Yes,
already.
it is. And they will tell you they're installing better control equipment that has better efficiency. But even with better efficiency, a 65% increase in production means 120 more tons of toxic air pollutants. The threshold for major is 40, so 120 is a big change, a big expansion. And one of the possibilities that we've suggested to MDE is that they require Perdue to test the hexane, the solvent that they use, to see if it contains PFAS, because a percentage of that solvent is evaporating in the process and going up in the air. And so when it goes up in the air, you have the potential for those emissions to drop on the ground in unexpected places. You know, Roger pointed out that the groundwater moves from east to west, but if you're emitting fugitive emissions of hexane, and if they contain PFAS, that could go in any direction.
Well,
So-
both of those branches have animals drinking out of them, deer, and then we hunt those animals and then we eat them.
Yes,
So
Yes.
that's a concern too.
it's a major concern.
Now,
I
if
agree
we
with you.
take the water system that they've offered me a water system, but I have animals too. We have cattle. With that water, my animals now are drinking that. We have the bottled water, but the animals are drinking that
Of
water. And then
course. Plus, who wants to live like that? right? Who wants to live like that?
Well, it's
So the
gonna affect-
groundwater needs to be cleaned up. It just does.
If we take the water system, though, can we still, are we giving away our rights?
You're not giving away any rights if you take the water system,
Okay, thank
okay?
you.
Yeah.
How you guys doing? Thanks for being here.
pleasure.
One comment and a couple questions.
Sure.
First comment is I moved back to Heather Glen in May of '23. Disappointing beyond belief to find out that they knew about this back in December, and then let us know almost a year later. During that time, my kids and myself are drinking our water, which is over 1,000 times more than what it should be. I've gotten my blood serum tested. It's 70 times over what they recommend, and that was in such a short period of time. So question is, are you recommending that folks here get the blood serum testing?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever a bad idea. It depends, exposure to PFAS doesn't always correlate 100% with blood serum, but you should know what your blood serum is. It's never a bad thing. People who were exposed years ago and haven't been exposed more recently or exposed at lower concentrations can still get cancers with a normal blood serum from PFAS. But yeah, I think it's always a good idea.
Yep. And then another question is, as this plume moves west, all the communities that are in the way as it goes, are we doing, not we, but the community, you don't hear anything about what's happening really. Is there any kind of public announcement that you can let people know that might be on the edge of that or beyond, so that they're not just casually drinking and consuming this and endangering themselves?
Yeah, one of the things we're doing in our investigation is trying to formulate an area of impact that accurately represents really what's going on in the ground, right? And we have to test from the source based on which way the water is flowing, according to the hydrogeology experts, until we go from getting positive tests to negative tests. And it's different in every direction you move, and it's pretty complicated. It takes some time. Yes, the plume will continue to move. They will take that into consideration, but it's really difficult to get a community compensated if all the wells or the majority of the wells are testing negative.
Yep, I understand that. Just for their own safety, as you know, in Minnesota, there's a plume that's been moving for decades.
Right.
And they have to keep testing and keep letting people know, oh, it's your turn to deal with this for the next decade, So that's all. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Let me add, I'd like to add one thing, which is in the back, we have blown up a map, and in the yellow part, you have the area where Perdue is testing. Then there are 3 other areas where we have tested and found significantly elevated concentrations where Perdue is not testing. So we're urging MDE to expand that test area. We've been urging Perdue to expand that test area, but we haven't gotten any inclination to do so. And it gives us a lot of concern because we've already seen elevated concentrations that are in the area that they're declining to test. So we are lobbying to have that expanded. And I would suggest, if you have any doubt about whether you're covered by the current testing, take a look at that map.
Yeah, and I would also follow up, not only are they not testing outside the area that they self-selected, but we have clients who have tested their own wells, who have come back with very high levels, clearly as a result of the Perdue contamination, and Perdue is refusing to give them water, to put in a filtration system, or to help those people at all. And that's part of the problem. Yes, sir.
Hi. So I spent most of my life just east of the plant, like literally right through the woods of the plant. It's been tested. My dad had the results. I don't know what they are. He just told me to come here because he couldn't make it. So he has cancer, and my mom passed away a couple years ago of cancer, so obviously I'm a little rattled by it. This is kind of a hypothetical. So they are currently developing a way to transfuse your blood and remove lead contamination. If that were to be something that they determine could be done for other things like this, could Perdue be kind of helping that, be done for people? Like I know in terms of the lawsuit, could they be
Right.
on?
I think we can exclude Perdue from the hypothetical altogether. if they're doing scientific research now to give people blood transfusions to remove lead, it would stand to follow that they could do it for PFAS.
Yes.
That having been said, we'd have to talk to our hematology experts and our oncology experts and our toxicology experts to see if that research is being done and whether or not they've had any success. It's an interesting approach to treating the problem. That's probably really expensive, really dangerous, and I don't know anybody that would want to go through it voluntarily.
Oh, yeah, I'm
And
terrified
that
of
would-
needles, so I wouldn't want to.
And that would be on Perdue,
Okay.
frankly.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I found a report from consumer facility, wait a minute.
That's all right. We got plenty of
Take your
time.
time.
Consumer reporting,
Consumer report.
yeah.
Okay.
And I found that they tested 25 different samples of water, and one of them was from Deer Park. They're giving us Deer Park. Why did they do that?
So I think if I understand, and I do understand that there are bottled waters out there,
Yeah.
that depending on where the source of the water is
Yes.
coming from, that from time to time they've been able to trace low levels of PFAS.
Yes.
So I think what you're saying is you read in Consumer Reports that Deer Park water may have had a positive test.
Yes.
And that Purdue's using Deer Park water to give to people.
Right.
Okay. Well, I would, I probably wouldn't drink Deer Park water.
That's everybody. Everybody.
Okay, I know. I'm just saying, I probably would. I didn't know that. Thank you. That this is a reason we have in all seriousness, this is a reason we have town halls, to share information. We share information with you. You all share information with each other. One of the things, I would be very surprised if all the water that Deer Park had issued through
Yes.
Perdue was contaminated, but
Right.
if any of you have unused bottles of Deer Park that you got from Perdue and you would like us to test it, just let us know. We'll come get a bottle and we'll test it.
Yes.
Okay?
I like that.
And thank you for the heads up.
Okay.
All
And
right.
one more.
Sure, please.
I smell the air all the time from Perdue, the ag business.
Yeah.
I can smell it. Every different times, usually early in the morning or the evening from soybeans. That
Right.
was the thing. What about that?
That's because solvents emit fugitive emissions. They evaporate to some extent. They try to save as much of the solvent as they can,
Yeah.
but inevitably part of it evaporates. So you're going to smell that,
Yeah.
and you're going to smell it more because they're increasing their air emissions very substantially, another 120 tons.
So what to do with that? Get them in again?
It may be the next Purdue lawsuit.
Yeah?
Now,
Okay.
the question with air emissions is that there's an odor component, okay, which is one thing.
Yes.
Just because there's a bad odor doesn't mean it's harmful to your health. So we're going to have to see what that air looks like in terms of sampling it after this expansion. But, for example, if there are high levels of toxins such as hexane in it that are harmful to people's well-being, we'll certainly be on top of that, and we'll let the community know.
Well, the other thing is that the hexane is dangerous, but
Yes.
one of the things MDE has to do is take a look at what happens when it mixes with the air, how concentrated it is, and whether that presents a danger. But the other big thing that's happening is that we urged MDE in July to require Purdue to test the hexane for PFAS, because there's so much potential to be distributing it
Yes.
if in fact it's contained in the hexane. So at this moment, they are testing the hexane for PFAS. We don't know the results yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been living in Sherwood Circle for 38 and a half years. And I'm pissed off about this situation because my wife passed away 2016. I got a daughter. Now I've got grandchildren. They live the next development up in in Kings Williams Court. Now, you're all saying something about compensation and stuff like that. So what compensation are you looking for somebody in my situation?
You know, there's never enough money to compensate.
I'm not here to get rich.
Right.
I'm here to say, you know what, I'd rather have my well back.
Sure.
You know, my home now isn't a problem, to sell it probably.
Right.
Now, Perdue,
We came here to fix the problem. We came here to put clean water in your well and everybody else's well. What I said when I was up here before, that's our #1 priority. We can't go back and undo what's happened already. All the consumption of contaminated water, all the people that have gotten sick. We can't turn back the time
I understand.
and make that go away. To the extent that those bad things have happened, and to the extent that your property has been damaged in terms of its value, the only thing we can do is try to get you compensated, frankly, as much as we can.
That's what I'm here to ask before I get into this suit with your law firm.
Yeah, I can't give you a number. I can tell you how it works. We get as much, I can tell you based on the prior cases we've done, we get as much money as we can from the corporate defendant. We figure out of the money we get, millions of dollars, how much of that money goes to fixing the problem, the remediation. And then what's left, that money needs to be given to the community based on each individual's injuries, which are unique, and the severity of their injury. We don't do that allocation. There are retired judges in the country who act as allocators in these class action cases, and they try to fairly distribute the money as best they can. But frankly, there's never enough money to compensate you for some of the things you've been through. But we'll do our best to get you as much as possible.
That's what I'm trying to find out, because now I've got this POET system in from Perdue. They put it in, checked my water, and they're putting it through filters. Now you're telling me about Deer Park. I mean,
Well, I
that's
didn't
what
tell
they're
you
giving
about
us.
Deer Park. I just repeated what I was told.
I mean, I feel like I'm living off the grid right now.
I hear
mean,
you.
I'm sitting here filling water every day from one jug to another, trying to, cooking and stuff like that. It's just, it's ridiculous. And now you're telling me Perdue wants to expand 65%.
Correct.
I mean, something needs to be done. I mean,
That's what we're doing.
Trying to do it.
That's what we're doing. Look,
Trying.
we found out about this problem in August or July of 2024. We put our team together for this case, and within 60 days, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of your community. We're spending hundreds of thousands, we will spend millions of dollars on behalf of your community that we may never get back if we don't win the case. We believe in the case. We wouldn't be putting in the time, wouldn't be putting in the money, and we are going to hold them accountable. That's what we do. All we can ask is that you be patient with us. We would like to solve the problem tomorrow. We don't get paid until this case is over, okay? So we're in as big a hurry as everybody else to get it done. But we want to fix the problem. We want to do it right.
that's what I'm trying to say. I've been there 38 and a half years. I'm not bragging, but I got a nice home. Worked on it, did it all my life. And maybe someday I'm retired, I wanted to sell it, move somewhere out in the country, further out in the country, get away from all this craziness in this world now. And now I got this water system in here that probably, I'm losing the value on my home.
Well, it's our job to try to get you compensated for whatever that loss is, to make you whole, okay? And
Well, I
we're going to do
appreciate
our
that.
best.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I just have a simple question. My aunt lived right across the street, and I understand that the yellow is the part that was tested by Perdue. not that it would ever bring her back, but how do you even find out what Purdue's test results were? You know, because hearing today that some of the results that they did were not even truthful.
Well, if you want to find out what the results are for a given well, you're talking about your aunt's well? Okay, does she, obviously she doesn't own the property. Do you know who does?
I do know who does.
Okay, well,
but
you should ask them if they will let you test the well. If they will let you test the well and the well comes back positive, when did she pass?
December last year.
Okay, well, you're within what's called the statute of limitations, and if we can prove that whatever caused her death is related to the PFAS contamination from Perdue, she would have a valid lawsuit, a meritorious case.
Okay,
So try to get the well tested.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just had a question. I do believe in the beginning of when this all started, you guys said something about a learning disability for young kids.
Sure.
Now, I have a young child, and she does have learning disability. She's got speech and reading and everything. Should I be documenting everything, and how far back should it go?
Have you taken your child to any sort of healthcare provider to be evaluated for this learning disability?
She has an IEP through school, plus she was just diagnosed with ADHD. And then I just had to take her to a dermatologist because her hair won't grow.
Okay. So the medical records are really the most reliable, objective way to prove a damage or some sort of injury in a case, especially a learning disability. So I think you don't need to really keep a journal.
Okay.
I think as long as you are regularly taking your child to a healthcare provider, you've got through the school evaluating your child and documenting what's wrong, I think you'll be fine.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
I have two questions. Is the problem, as I understand it, one of ingestion of water from these wells rather than contact? In other words, is there a transdermal component to this where if you wash your hands or take a shower, you can transmit the chemical, or do you have to be drinking it?
Based on the current state of the medical literature, you have to be drinking it.
Okay. Second thing is, I'm trying to get my head around these numbers. Trillions are a little above the number of fingers I have to count. And I Googled how many drops of water are in a gallon. And Google says there's 75,000 drops of water per gallon.
Right.
I don't know who the poor bastard was that had to count all those drops, but I'll take it as face value, okay? So based on that, 1 trillion drops is 13 million gallons. So for me to ingest 1 part per trillion, I got to drink 13 million plus gallons. That's a lot of water. I'm not trying to put this down, but it's as much ado about nothing with the quantity and the levels we're talking about. And I agree, 1,000 parts per trillion is much different than maybe 4 parts per trillion, which is the EPA recommendation. I'll buy that. But that's a lot of water to ingest.
Well, I don't think it works exactly like that.
No.
Okay? I think that's what they want you to not drink, higher elevations above the 4 parts per trillion. And I understand that. But many of the wells that we're testing are 10 to 100 times that number. And it's also the concentration is not so much related to how much water you have to drink. It only takes, I don't know how much you know about cancer, but cancer starts with one cell. One cell. You can't see it. You can't see it with a microscope, okay? And it divides. And then those cells divide. It's called doubling times. PFAS works much the same way. It only takes a very little bit of PFAS in your blood to start cancer. And you probably won't see the cancer for 5 to 10 years. So, people a lot smarter than me who've done a lot of research, who really specialize, toxicologists from around the world, have determined that there is clearly a causal relationship, which is why, governments and corporations are spending hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars all over the country getting rid of PFAS.
Okay,
Thank you.
Let me add one more thing, which is, sir, I don't think it's a question of having to drink that much water. That's not how you look at this. You look at it as the concentration in the water. So even if you drank a small amount above that concentration, you'd be at risk. And when EPA assigns numbers, when they have a very low limit like this one, what that means is it's highly dangerous. The more dangerous, the lower the limit. So this is a very low limit because it's a highly dangerous set of substances. And if you drink any amount above that concentration, you're at risk.
thank you.
I wanted to make one more comment. We've had some questions about health impacts here. Just to clarify, with respect to our class action as it is today, we are proceeding to discovery on the property diminution and medical monitoring to monitor for health conditions that may be caused by PFAS. We are also intending to what's called amend our complaint to bring in claims for personal injuries going forward. So I wanted to make that point of clarification.
I'll be short.
Sure.
I lost my wife, my mother, and my mother-in-law. It's hard.
I'm sure.
Metastatic breast cancer. But that's been 6 or 7 years ago. So is that too late to try to prove anything, or?
Not necessarily. You know, a latent injury is something that we typically argue about legally and try to get included in claims. So I wouldn't say definitively one way or the other whether or not that claim will turn out to be meritorious. But it's certainly something we try to get compensation for.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. Just want to first and foremost thank all of you for taking your time to make us something aware that obviously Perdue would have, they've been doing this for 25 years and they've still yet to bring it to our attention. So thank you for taking time out of your day to bring everything to our attention. Three-part. First, you said that there was a hatchery there on site. Now, those chicks are actually drinking that contaminated water as well, I would assume. With that being said, do you know offhand, by any chance, is Perdue addressing that issue, like when those chicks are actually sent to, be slaughtered and then actually, be put on the grocery shelf? Is there some way for the general public to know, hey, might not want to buy you because this could be a side effect?
I think the answer to that question really lies in, has the water that those chicks are drinking been tested?
True.
Do we know whether or not that water's been tested?
We don't.
We don't.
Okay.
And I will tell you, one of the things we really haven't talked about, the further down you drill, the more likely it is you'll test negative.
Okay, so like when you were talking, Roger, about the Minokan Aquifer, so I guess there'd be less contaminated there as opposed to the one that was actually above it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second part, the PowerPoint presentation that you have, the 500 people or plus, I guess, that are in the class action lawsuit, could you email that to us so that we could have that at our access?
Yeah, I think the PowerPoint, if it's not available on our website or there is a website for this case.
Okay.
It should be readily available. There should be a link.
A link that we can go to.
I can confirm that it'll be on there if
Gotcha.
it's not already.
Third part, the 65% that you were talking about, Purdue's trying to expand. Where they are actually trying to expand to, do they readily have that land already available? Or is that something where they're trying to buy it from someone that we could hold this up in this whole process till they actually get our issue addressed?
I don't know that they're buying land. What they're doing is introducing new equipment.
On site, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. That's it.
Pleasure. Good evening.
I just have a question. I live on the other side of the yellow.
Right.
Just on the other side of the yellow. And I know that MDE I assume it was MDE that drafted these lines for Perdue, or Perdue drafted these lines for MDE.
Correct. Perdue
allow
drafted
them
the
certifications
lines for
and
MDE.
grant them
That's right.
responsible
Right, which
individuals.
is sort of like, what is it, the fox watching the hen house?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
Right, but I was just wondering, with the aquifers, are you pressing that point?
Oh, yeah, I mean, what we are doing is taking the area that Perdue unilaterally selected to test, and we're testing outside that area, and we're getting many positive results. So if you're outside that area, I highly encourage you to have your well tested.
It's been tested, and it's above.
Okay, well,
So-
I can pretty much, given where you're located just on the other side of that line, I'd feel very comfortable being able to prove that Perdue has caused the problem for you.
Yeah, okay. I noticed that you discussed a little bit about the aquifers, but didn't really show the plumes and the substratuses that would, an overlay that would give more of a infestation of this problem.
Right.
That we're incurring, unfortunately. But I don't know if there's such a study available or what.
There probably will be more detailed illustrations that we develop as our investigation continues. We still need to gather more information to make sure we know where the line stops, right? It clearly doesn't stop at your house, it stops somewhere down the road.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it. One other question.
Yes.
What kind of insight from MDE have you gotten about creating the expansion of those lines?
Deborah,
Well,
from MDA?
So far, they have not required Purdue to test beyond that, and we've asked Purdue to test beyond that too, and they have declined.
So just the classification of responsible covers it?
No, it doesn't, because they've approved the yellow area. MDE has approved the yellow area of study, and we're saying that is not good enough. We have proof that there are elevated concentrations outside that area. So they need to test more broadly, they need to expand the study area, et cetera. So we're making that claim to MDE, but so far they have not required Purdue.
And I will tell you that we're not relying on what MDE is doing or what they're requiring. The whole reason we have a lawsuit, okay, is because we believe the damage is much more significant than Purdue is letting on. And your house and your well is a perfect example.
And I brought this attention to MDE back in '24.
Right.
And into the spring. And then it got to the point where they just handed me some flyers, more or less.
Well, very often, the reality is that MDE is responsible for the whole state and every type of contamination, environmental contamination throughout the state. And they really don't have enough people, enough resources, a big enough budget to handle every individual case the way we can. So very often what we do, and we do it here, we do it in states around the country, we'll come in, we'll have, resources that they don't have, and we will really get down in the weeds, so to speak. We will test as much as we possibly can, and then once we have that information and our case is getting towards the end, very frequently state agencies like MDA will come to us and adopt a lot of our work and use that to help craft a settlement that takes care of the community.
Yeah, I got you. I understand. Thanks.
Sure.
And also note, for purposes of our investigation, we are engaged in a water testing program, as we've mentioned, outside of Purdue's area. And so if you are outside that area, I'd ask that you speak to one of our folks in the back, and provided you're within the area that we're prioritizing right now, we are making arrangements to perform testing at our expense.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for this meeting and your previous meeting. It's been helpful. I still have 1,000 questions. I'm sure you all do too, as you try to uncover all that's been going on here the last maybe quarter of a century. I recently retired from NASA Wallops Island, and as you know, we started dealing with the PFAS problem in 2016 that affected the town of Chincoteague's drinking water wells. And we know that PFAS does not honor state lines, county roads, or political districts. PFAS dissolves in groundwater and it moves wherever the groundwater goes. So I'm just outside the yellow zone. I'm over near the stadium, just on this side of Route 50, on the south side of Route 50. I have 2 wells on my property, and I'm concerned because I'm seeing what the map shows and the people that you've tested outside of what Perdue has done and what MDE has called for. We work with you guys to get that tested, or should we go our own route and get it tested ourselves? And
We have a testing program that we're in the midst of. And the testing program is being driven by what our hydrogeology experts, the information they need. So they're really directing us where to test in terms of priorities. I don't know where your house is relative to what the priorities are of our experts, but if it's in an area that's a priority for us at this point, we would be happy to do the testing for you.
I think I'm southwest,
I can
about
tell you
3/4 of a
that,
mile.
yeah, that the PsychoPure test is, I think it's $80 plus minus, for a well. And it's reasonably reliable, and it's certainly providing a lot of data. So if you want to see the people in the back, they can tell you whether or not we can do the testing for you at this point. If not, if you're concerned,
Yeah.
might want to spend the $80.
Right. And then if I get a positive result, contact you and let you know that.
Absolutely.
Right. To the east, there have been some folks that have had some positive hits to the east of the facility. Is that the assumption right now that has to do with Perdue?
That part's, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we don't know yet. The water is moving from east to west,
Right.
so intuitively you would think no. On the other hand, that's one of the reasons we wanted to have the hexane tested, because if you had air emissions, they could certainly contaminate the soil, and with the percolation of water through the soil, you would have it in the groundwater. So we're looking into that. We really don't know yet.
Has anyone done any air testing?
Not
you know
for
of?
Not for
PFAS,
Brule,
no.
Not for PFAS.
And that's testing that would have to be directly done at the stack or at the emission point? And you couldn't do it across the street 100 yards away?
No, they won't be doing ambient testing. What they will do, I think, is test the hexane, because with the solvent, you have evaporation as opposed to the stack. So what they do is they figure out how much hexane they start with, how much they end up with, and the difference has evaporated. So they'll be testing the hexane for PFAS.
But there are definitely areas in the country that have PFAS deposition from air emissions.
No question
But
about
there's
it.
no hexane involved.
Our
So
case,
why
our
is
case
ours
in,
linked to hexane?
against W.L. Gore is exactly that. They were
It's that
emitting
case.
PFAS to the air. It grossly contaminated the soil, trickled down into the groundwater.
So the indication is that the distillation process they use here, any PFAS that's being emitted in the air would be co-eluted with the hexane and maybe some steam.
Well, we don't know
Well, you
yet.
don't know.
We don't know yet whether the hexane
And that's not
contains
something
PFAS.
that can be tested easily from an
Yes,
ambient
so that's why
distance.
we urged MDE to require them to test the hexane. And we've just seen through public information requests that MDE is requiring them to do that test.
Yeah. You're being generous with your description of MDE being understaffed, because I've done permitting in all 3 states nearby.
Got to get along.
But they know that Perdue is influential in Maryland, and they only use as big a stick as they feel like they have to.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
you.
for that, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. That's
This
okay.
is more of a statement.
Sure.
They can check, like anybody in these areas that get cancer, they can do DNA testing to see if it's acquired or if you're predisposed genetically to get cancer. So if anybody gets cancer in these areas, that would be an option. That would be something that they could do that would prove that it was acquired, that it wasn't, you weren't genetically predisposed
And
to get it.
you can be genetically predisposed.
Yes, you can.
And still have a contaminant cause your cancer.
Okay,
It does happen. I've seen it many times. But you're right, it would be helpful
yes.
to see if you have the genetic predisposition.
It helped me a lot, yes, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a 52-year-old that years are sneaking up on me, and I have never had a mammogram. And when I went for my yearly, she says, Angela, I'm going to send you to get a mammogram. And I did. And I got a call today and said that there was some irregularities, that they had to do another test. And by reading all this PFA's situation, I'm going like, uh-oh. Also, I have been struggling with a left middle toe that have had been oozing since August. And I did had a couple times that had the antibiotics, and they don't seem to be working. I'm at front here. I was a little late. So I don't know which of you guys are maybe for the state or the city that would be looking out for our well-being. And I'm very petrified with what's going on. I'm also a new grandmother.
Have you had your well tested?
I'm right in the red zone, right in the red zone with my luck.
You still need to test your well.
And so this is so disturbing, you know. It's I also have other set apart issues with my health. But when anxiety kicks in, you just wonder, is these delegates for these cases, are they going to drag it for years? Or are they going to help us to the point that we need the medical help, we need the screenings that is going to stop the I mean, for example, mine, if they found something on my breast, and it was due to the PFAs. I have never had any problem with my breast before, but I never had a mammogram either. So are we going to catch it in time so we don't have any fatalities or, I mean...
Yeah, part of our lawsuit is to create a medical monitoring program for the community and fund that program so that anybody that qualifies for the program will be seen by a healthcare provider, if they want to be, with frequency for a certain battery of tests that cover all the diseases that are causally related to PFAS. It's been done in other communities around the country. The sooner you catch these diseases, especially the cancers, the more treatable, the more curable they are. That's the whole purpose behind medical monitoring. So that is a big part of our case and a big part of what we're trying to do for the community.
I'm really here at front to ask you to maybe, like you say, you trigger the problem 60 days after you found out what was going on, that it's not going to drag for years, you know? What you guys delegate, who did wrong or who said wrong or how we're going to fix it. I mean, I could be very well the victim of breast cancer that caused that, you know? So I'm just hoping that all of you that are front are going to, like, save us, save the community. You know, it's, I know I have had a few nights that I'm thinking, should I have done this or should I have done that or should I move out or what's going on?
Well, I can tell you, we are gonna do our best with all the resources available to us to fix the problem as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll send my information. Thank you so much.
Please do, thank you. Hello.
Hi. Can we consider the testing that's been done by Langen, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Purdue's, trustworthy?
I don't have any reason to challenge that. So but I also believe whoever does the testing, you know, I'm a big believer in second opinions. I mean, I've seen wells tested and they get tested 6 months later, they go from negative to positive or positive to negative, but the levels change. So if you're not comfortable with those test results because of who tested them, you know, for $80 you can get a CycloPure, and if the results are similar, you have that peace of mind. If they're not, so be it.
MDE typically takes a split sample so that they can test too.
Okay.
And they can keep a check on Langen.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
They took split samples here.
We don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say no. We don't know.
We don't
The
know.
answer is no.
I have one
Yes, ma'am.
question. Perdue installed the point of entry water filters, but they said they would only be responsible for these tanks until 2029. So then what happens to us? We have to
Well,
pay for it?
What happens to you if we're successful is that doesn't matter, because we're not going to resolve this lawsuit and have them stop taking care of you in 2029. Typically, it's 20 to 25 years is typically how long out we're able to go in these cases in terms of having water filtration. Typically, after 20 to 25 years, that plume has moved far enough that the water is no longer contaminated. We probably will put a rider in any sort of agreement that we try and craft. It says if, however, the well keeps testing positive, they need to keep giving you filtration. So,
But when they test the water, they're testing the filtered water.
no, we wouldn't rely on filtered water.
Thank you.
We're going to test it before it gets to the filter.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Well, look, thank you all. Thank you for being patient with us. We got a little bit of a late start, and thank you for coming out tonight. You can always call us. We're available. Feel free. Email us, and I'm sure we'll be back here, in the next 3 to 6 months to talk to you again. Thank you all. Hi. Oh, God, how have you been? Your sister was my first girlfriend. Jesus.